the one that's a winning formula. The question's going to be, will he be able to continue to maintain that approach through questioning by David and Lindsay and through any comments that Vice President Harris makes in his direction?
Check.
That'll be the key to how he performs tonight.
Check.
You and I were talking. You helped prepare him for those 2016
What up,
debates
y'all?
against Hillary Clinton. He told you that he had respect for Hillary Clinton.
What's up, everybody?
Hillary Clinton was smart as you were preparing.
We back.
What about Kamala Harris?
We streaming.
Not the same.
We streaming.
Well, certainly he's not saying that publicly in any way. And I can tell you that in 2016, he would regularly say during the many debate prep sessions that we had with him,
What up?
Hillary Clinton was smart, that she was a good debater, that she was
not mad about it. Don't be
lightly.
mad.
And I don't
Stay
think
here.
there's ever a moment in 2016
Stay here, Reagan Dwell.
where he took her lightly. I do think he took Joe Biden lightly.
Let me edit
in
this fucking
2020.
title.
And clearly during the prep sessions that I had with him, it was very, very difficult to get him to focus on what Joe Biden might or might not do in that first debate. And I think his performance in part reflected that. So the question's going to be, is what he's saying publicly what he really believes? We know that often with Donald Trump, that's performance.
There we go.
But I will tell you that in his 2016 prep, he was serious about getting ready for Hillary Clinton. In his 2020
no, it's not a live reaction
prep,
to the old clip. No. We're doing
unserious
debate.
about
We're
getting
doing the
ready for
debate
Joe
watch.
Biden.
We're doing a debate
I think
watch.
performances in both those debates reflected that approach.
All right, Chris Christie
Don't
will
worry.
be watching with us.
We're watching the debate.
And we have about 6 minutes left before the debate, so let's
6
bring in
minutes?
Donna Brazil, formerly
Oh, my
the DNC,
goodness.
and Reince Priebus, the
live
RNC.
reaction.
Welcome to both of you. And Donna, let's start with
Okay,
you.
so it's
have
working
said
well.
that Kamala Harris has to own the future, but she also has to own the past. So how does she
we're
do
here.
this?
We're here. What's up?
It's
What's up,
quite
all
easy.
42 of you?
Because I do believe that in talking about the future, you draw from your past. You draw from your past experiences. She draws from how she was raised, the values that was instilled
How we
in her
doing,
as
y'all?
a young lady. Look,
Sorry.
she is steady on her feet, still in her resolve.
The streaming deck is not ready yet, but we're a little bit away.
Go to their kitchen table and say, look, I have some ideas that I want to share with you. There's so much that we have done together over the last 4 years, but here's what I think we can do together over the next 4 years. Be positive in her approach and really remind the American people that we don't want to go back to the chaos and the confusion, the disaster that made, of course, the American
How we doing? How we doing on bitrate, guys? Is it going well?
The former president say, I want to be a president that lead all Americans. I want to keep us strong and secure, and here's the plan that I want to share with you tonight.
And Donna, I of course meant Biden. She has to own up to the Biden administration.
Am I ready for Marvel vs. Capcom 2? Yes.
Donald Trump is going to go
Very
after her
ready.
on that.
How we doing on the audio
mistakes.
levels, guys? Let
Donald
me
Trump
raise
and
this.
Mr. Pence made mistakes, but you know what? If we focus on our mistakes, we won't focus on all of the good things that we could do together as Americans. I do believe there's something to say about people who are now able to work. The people who can buy their insulin without paying over $1,000, $35. There's so much good that she can talk about from the visits that she's made to small towns across this country, large cities across the country. Bring us together. The American people want to be led into the future, not dragged back to another era.
How you guys feeling about
Reince,
this debate?
I want
what do you
your
feel?
thoughts on, you've also prepped Donald Trump for debates back in 2016.
How you feeling?
I believe. What Donald Trump do you think we'll see tonight? Can he be disciplined about talking about policies and what kind of president he will be?
Well, he certainly can be. I mean, the reality is Donald Trump doesn't have a lot to lose tonight. I mean, his support has always been almost unmovable. So
I don't think he's wrong.
The second
Trump
piece
doesn't
is
have
the
a ton to
honeymoon, I think,
lose.
is over for Kamala Harris. And you all kind of touched on it with Donna. Kamala Harris has to answer for the state of the economy that she took a role in the Biden administration, the border, her past positions on decriminalizing the border, decriminalizing certain drugs, what her role was in Afghanistan. So really, the spotlight is on Kamala Harris tonight because she played a role.
I hate how this guy's making it, but he's not wrong. The spotlight is absolutely on Harris.
This is where the focus is going
Absolutely
to be.
on Harris.
And she's got a lot to answer for tonight. And I think that's where Donald Trump's focus will be and where it actually should be tonight.
Well, one of the things he wants to do is have female voters look at him. How does he attract female voters after saying things about Kamala Harris? And we'll see how he pronounces that tonight. Things he said about Kamala Harris, that she's dumb as a rock. That's not really going to attract female voters, is it?
Yeah, no, it won't. But I also think that just like he did in the first debate against Joe Biden, I think the formula here is to constantly tie Kamala Harris to the Biden administration, which is where Trump is winning against her on the economy, inflation, and all these other problems.
Bro, I'm looking at Twitter right now. There's like 9 million watch parties.
Let her explain
Thanks
herself,
for kicking it
her
with
past
me.
positions, current positions. How does she feel about how Biden has done on the economy? How does she feel about the border? Then turn it over and let her talk.
Okay, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Donna and Reince. We're all staying tuned. Can't wait.
And I have to say, as we are just a couple of less than 2 minutes away, this such an extraordinary moment, and especially Rachel,
I'm like,
consider that these two people that have been the center.
I'm a little
of our
nervous,
lives
man.
for
I'm
the
not
last
really
2
looking
months
forward to this all that much.
Have never met each other.
Have never even met each other. And Harris said, if you
I
got
just feel
something
like
to
it could be
say,
a
say it
shit
to my
show.
face. The question tonight, does Donald Trump actually go there? He's questioned her racial identity. He's questioned her intelligence as well, or does he stick to the issues?
We'll see.
This
I'm
is
excited.
the largest audience they're likely going to have
And
in
also
this race.
scared.
It will be interesting to see if Harris can make clear the stark choice before voters. And where does she decide to land her punches? She can punch hard. Can she do that while rising above the needle and coming?
This debate is no big deal. It's only the literal
future
future of Western
when
society
the two
is
of them
that,
meet
yep.
for the first time.
We didn't back in 2016 when I did that
As
debate.
usual,
We'll
them have to
stand
be
by
perfect.
see
This is
that
just the way
tonight, but
politics
the
is, man.
first
It's just
time,
like it's
side
because
to
they
side,
it's because of the
together.
Biden thing.
And I have my doubts.
If
that
they
we're
would
gonna
have switched
see
out
that handshake,
Biden
but what we are
early,
gonna see
like
is a
it would be a very
spirited
different
debate,
story that we
and
have
perhaps
here. But
the most consequential
we're here
general
where we are.
election debate we have ever seen, because almost certainly going to be the last one. So with the stakes so high, the presidential debate just moments away, we have the entire news division keeping an eye on everything. We are going to be fact-checking on our live blog. It's all going to be happening
720p?
right here. The debate
What is this
now,
720p
just 10
bullshit?
seconds away,
ABC
and we
News?
will be back with our post-game show.
I'm
as soon
not
as
I'm
it's
not
over.
streaming
We
at
are gonna
720,
toss
am I?
it right
I'm a good
now
1080,
to
aren't
David
I?
Muir.
Am I 4K by the way? Oh shit, actually. Am I 4K right now?
Tonight, the high-stakes showdown here in Philadelphia between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended just weeks ago. President Biden withdrawing after his last debate. Donald Trump now up against a new opponent.
Of
the
course.
candidates separated by
Love
the
doing a
smallest
viewing
of
party for you
margins,
guys.
essentially tied in the polls nationally. And in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
Oh, right now. Oh,
This
shit.
is an ABC News special. The most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris,
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump,
We will soon be a great nation again.
face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate.
Followed by the live Jimmy Kimmel debate extravaganza. Protein shake, jug of water. Let's deal. Jamie, watch that video. Yeah, unfortunately, the Gaza issue is not polling the way it needs to. I'm pretty upset about that. And honestly, I feel like there's still benefits, but like it needs to be articulated in a way that this administration and this campaign team, I don't think is well enough to do. But I think an arms embargo needs to happen immediately. What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, okay. Be kind. Did you want? This is the most awkward walkout.
Housing. And the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations.
Yeah, he said
which
Harris
will
and Trump were elected 4 years ago.
$5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Oh, goddamn.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back.
He asked if we're better off today
than
we were 4 years ago, which she kind of dodged.
Tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't.
Reasonably.
It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country.
He had an open shot and he fucked it.
They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality.
And
we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country.
Here we are.
I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us.
I do not think it's a smart thing for her to make this about Trump.
And I
she should
pledge
be making this about
to be a
her.
president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns. We got masks.
I get the strategy, but I just don't think it's smart. Like, you have to win over swing voters. They know who Trump is. They got to know who you are.
But not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic.
He's going to fuck up, dude. He's already fucking up. Like, you just got to do a little bit better. You got to spread your wings a little bit.
And it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next
the attack
year
is specific,
would invite
it's good.
a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know
I don't think he's that
Donald
mad yet.
Trump actually has no plan
He's
for
freewheeling.
you
He thinks he's
because he is
winning.
more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and
he thinks
work
he's doing great.
Create jobs
now,
and create a lot of good,
he's not doing
solid
bad.
money for
Well, no, he's kind of doing bad. He's fucking up.
And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer.
I did not hear about that.
Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration.
That's not a
bad swing.
Billions
of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out.
That's a good attack.
About China should be in
Not answering
making
the question,
sure
but
the
it's a good
United
attack.
States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having, on the short end of the stick, in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window.
She needs to defend herself a little bit better against that policy question. She's doing some good hits, but she's got to defend that policy question.
If she ever got elected, she'd change it, and it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights.
We got 420 viewers.
In your
What's
home
up,
state
y'all?
of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
Her making gestures is my definition of optics is bad. It's not bad.
Said you would vote to support the
optics
6-week
is
ban.
optics is just
Vice President
optics.
Harris says that women shouldn't trust you.
Her as a woman, like, it's not about her. Like, of course, people judge women differently, but she understands that very well. She looks very, very, like, the way she's acting is looking like a smarter person than this. Her goals define him as insane, and he's not.
They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before. He said the baby will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution.
Here's the thing. Like, he's already off right now. Like, he's swinging, right? And Harris wants to look likable.
But what I did is something for 52 years they've been
Why
trying
does
to
Trump
get
have more
Roe
time to
v.
respond?
Wade into the states.
I don't know if he has more time.
And
They both have
through
pretty
the,
long speeches.
Genius.
Vanessa,
and-
also,
and
thank you for your
heart
comment
and
earlier today. I
strength
really appreciated
of
the discussion.
6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it.
Why are you signing off on that, dude?
And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to
there we go with the fact
Well,
check.
as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Best answer she gave, she's not nervous anymore. She was definitely nervous.
I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk?
Well, I won't have to because, again, 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think
Hi,
probably
Eric. I
her
played
boss,
Halo Infinite. I don't know if this is the time to talk about
that,
that,
time
though.
on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way.
Okay, so this is, now we're settling in.
So all these students got...
He could have actually done pretty well on this question if he hadn't gone so intense, man.
Part of the reason they lost to
him maximalizing, like, everybody wanted it. I did something nobody else couldn't, trying to make this great of accomplishment is a fucking bad idea, especially to swing voters.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it.
We don't have to discuss it, and you're dissing her on policy questions? The fuck, bro?
They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress. Do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade, and as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans.
Good.
Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body, and that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization.
What the
IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer the question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
answer the question, would you veto?
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside, and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border
She
security.
bodied that
We know it's an
question.
issue that's
The
important
first
to
question I think
Republicans,
Trump
Democrats,
actually did
voters
pretty
across
well
the
against her.
board,
She
in
bodied
this
that
country.
second one, though. That was
Vice
very
President
good.
Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June,
I think
President
they
Biden
took them
imposed
off.
tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your
She's got to stop. Let him just hang himself,
and I'll tell
dude.
you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point,
She's got to stop, like, just trying to swing at him.
Did you try to kill that bill and successfully?
Just let him hang himself. He feels bad. He's already fucking him up. Fucking
Let
up.
me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take
This is dumb.
their country
Why
back.
are we having a conversation about
Our country
rallies?
is being lost.
Why?
We're a failing
Like,
nation.
I get it. He looks great, but why? Why are we not having a
And
conversation? What the fuck are we
what's
doing?
going on here? You're going to end up in World War III. Just to go into another subject. What they have done
It's a
to
fine
our
bait,
country
like,
by
but like I
allowing
just
these millions and
I
millions
get it,
of people
but like
to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as
I'll give her that. I'll give her that.
They like what I say.
I think he would have done that anyway.
They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase: "Make America great again." She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney.
That's not a solid man.
And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the Republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the...
Oh, that's a hit.
And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes
It's a
a book.
90-minute
Another one
debate.
writes a book.
So we're
Because
30
with me,
minutes
they can
in.
write
We're doing
books.
all
With
right.
nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation
It's scheduled
in the history
for
of our
it's a
country.
90-minute
You say
debate.
you would use the National Guard.
So it started
you say if things get out
at
of control, you'd have
6
no
o'clock.
problem using the
We'll
U.S.
go for
military.
till 7:30.
You also said you would use local
We're about
police.
a third of the way through.
How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here.
Crime is down all over the world? What the
Despite their
fuck?
fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels
You brought
that
this up 4 years ago. You can't say it's
the
new.
FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ from Atlanta.
Winning Hillary
and
Clinton
Fawny
style, I
Willis
don't think is a good idea, Ethan. She's
She's
doing a little bit differently, I think, but like
every one of those
it can't be.
cases,
She's got to
and then
define herself
they say,
as well.
"Oh,
The issue right
he's a
now is that
criminal."
she hasn't.
They're the
Like, if the
ones
second
that
half of this she does some
made them
definitions of
go
herself,
after me. By
she's
the way,
good.
Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is some...
She did duck it a little bit. Yeah, she's been
Because
ducking.
certainly we know
She's
now
not
the
ducking.
court
She got to
won't
talk
stop
about
him. We
it.
know
She
J.D.
talked about
Vance
it
is not
earlier
gonna
with the
stop
bill,
him.
but she's got to be
It's
more
up to the
specific
American
about those
people.
things.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized.
A lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times, is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting
What were the
Social
3
Security
she asked
and
for?
Medicare
She asked for immigration. She asked for
work that
no.
I
She
have
asked for
done,
fracking.
protecting seniors
She asked
from
for gun
scams.
buybacks.
My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your response?
First of all, I wasn't given
fracking,
$400
immigration,
million. I
and
wish I
assault
was. My
bans.
father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn,
Oil,
Queens,
okay.
and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was
She answered
given
the oil
a fraction
question.
of that, a tiny fraction, and
Nothing
I
on the
built
gun
it into many,
buybacks.
many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And
Border
when people
policy.
see
She's
it,
staying
they
away.
are
She already
even
said the
surprised.
border policy. She's
So
staying away
we
from
don't
the
have to talk
immigration
about
question.
that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up.
Wait, defund the police?
Very
Wait,
wrongly,
what?
very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she
There's
was
someone
big on
Kamala
defund
don't
the
give Oscars
police.
there. She's
In
definitely laying on
Minnesota,
the.
she went out. Wait a minute, I'm talking now.
Drama.
If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens
Here's
that
the
are in
thing.
prison.
Donald Trump is
This
insane.
a radical
This is
left
insane
liberal
things.
that will
Like
do this.
I don't need
She
to
wants
tell you. It's just
confiscate your
rambling,
guns,
and it's kind of
she
funny
will
to watch
never
somebody
allow
ramble.
fracking in
But again,
Pennsylvania.
the big
If
part
she
about
won
this
the
debate is
election,
Kamala Harris
fracking in
defining herself
Pennsylvania will end
and
on
putting
day
it in
one.
there, and she's
Just to
staying
finish
away from
one
certain
thing,
questions.
so
That is
important
something
in
they
my
can hit her
opinion.
on. Right?
So
this isn't
I got
about
the
who's
oil
going to
business
win
going
on the
like
right
nobody has
policy.
ever
This is
done
about who
before.
wins on optics.
When
and
they took
she's
over,
doing well
they got rid of
on
it, started
optics.
getting
She
rid
looks
of it,
good.
and the
But
prices were going
there are
up
also things that people
the
can hit her
roof.
on. She has
They
vulnerability. She's got to
immediately
knock
let
this out of
these
the
guys
park.
go
And
to
I
where
think
they
that she
were.
still, there's more
I would
questions.
have been
She killed the
5
abortion
times,
question.
4
She
times, 5 times higher because you're
easily
talking
won
about
that.
3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice because the prices
He's
of
rambling like a
energy
mother. He's
were
yapping, dude.
quadrupling and doubling.
The
You saw
biggest
what happened
yap
to
session I've
gasoline.
seen.
So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar. But they take
What the fuck? You dissing it? What the fuck?
400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day.
Will this debate have any effect, meaningful effect? It will. If she defines it, this debate is very important. It is incredibly
you did send out
important.
tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about
Swing
all
voters
the
aren't
people
a fan
that
of
are
that
pouring into our
insurrection,
country
guys.
and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border.
She's
In
got
fact,
to
she
hit
said
back
at
on the border
beginning,
thing. She's
"Oh,
got
I'm
to.
surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
In terms of optics, that's a good
But let me
defense.
just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president.
bullshit,
you
but
were
it's a-
watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's
This is a good
capital,
frame.
to desecrate
Very good
our
frame.
nation's capital. On
I
that
was
day,
there.
140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy.
I get really annoyed when there's a campaign, but she was killing it like a second ago. I'm not a fan of the second half.
And to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
Good hit.
Let's turn the page on this.
Good hit.
Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go
Wait, is it giving you
backwards to the
commercials?
past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham,
I just
Sean
turned off
Hannity,
monetization, guys. I'm
Jesse,
sorry about that.
All of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying
Can
you
you guys
won
hear
in
me?
a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
Can you
I
guys
said
hear
that
me?
Sarcastically, you know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much
My
proof.
stream
All you have
thing
to do
is telling
look
me
at
that
it.
like the
And
audio
they should
stream's
have
fucking
sent
up.
it
Okay,
back to
good.
the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about it. An election is fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls we need, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad, and a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in.
He's defined himself. She's got to jump in. She's got to jump in. I appreciate it, guys. I know that y'all can hear me.
That's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm. Lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it
and said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you
He's going to complain about the moderators
and
insanely for the next couple
weeks.
weeks.
We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
She already brought up the
will
Republicans killing the border
prison
bill,
sentences.
but she hasn't repeated it.
One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do?
Suppress?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election.
Frame.
It leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her.
Wow, bro. You're just... Oh, man.
They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
Your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans
Here we
among
go.
them. Vice President Harris in
Two
December,
bad
you
answers.
said,
I'm
quote,
just
Israel
ready
has
for
a
it.
right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump,
It's the
how would
same
you
answer,
negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages
same
out
answer.
and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years,
Wait,
have
hold
gone
on.
into Ukraine and killed millions
Wait.
of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was
did
at
meet
a
with him.
sorority party of hers. She wanted to
What?
go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel. Israel will be gone. It would have never happened.
What are we
Iran was
talking
broke
about?
under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had.
It would have never
Iran had
happened.
no money
She
for
hates
Hamas
Israel,
or
but also
Hezbollah
Israel will be
or
gone.
any of
But
the
also
28
Arabs will be
different,
gone. But also
spheres of
there's
terror.
a what
And
the
they
fuck?
are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke.
You covered it
Now
really
they're
well.
A rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money
What's the
around.
right answer to the Gaza question? Like, it's literally just change some of the language. Be be more specific on Palestinians, right? Be more specific that like people in Palestine have died. Rebuilding Gaza was a good start, right? But the self-determination soundbite needs to be changed, like 100%. Again, this is a political calculus. I'm not talking about my moral feelings on it, but the political calculus, that thing needs to be changed because it just sounds rote at this point. Also, she could have said that he used Palestinian as a pejorative. Good hit.
And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery.
Similar to Netanyahu. So maybe we should
why
hit him too.
so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why.
When she's hitting him like this, it's
understand that
effective.
We have to have a president who is not consistently
He's mad.
weak
He's
and
well, he's
wrong
annoyed.
on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month
There's one guy
for the
who's-
year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're
I think her
grossly
strategy is to
incompetent.
get him to
And I just
defend
asked
the
one
talking
question.
points, and he's
Why
doing
does
it.
Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Okay, I gotta say a couple things. First, look at him frozen. Look at him.
The ABC News presidential debate will continue.
Politicians with no music is like my favorite shit. Just like when they walked out, they were just, hello. Like, it's ridiculous. Okay, here are my thoughts. Here are the Trump fans are in here. The Trump fans are in here. Yo, they're welcome to be here as long as they're not assholes. Everybody can be here. We can all have a discussion. Let's all be good to each other and not just be fucking beefing in the comments, right? We're talking about politics, right? Like, let's be very real. This is a rap battle with two stuck-up people, all right? Okay? All right? Let's analyze this like Drake and Kendrick versus fucking... Because we all have disagreements, right? And, I mean, we could talk about policies and all that kind of stuff. But, like, I want to make... Everybody hates this fucking election. Like, everybody hates election news, right? So let's be good about this, okay? All right. Number one. First off, the goal Kamala Harris has to do and what the goal Donald Trump has to do. Donald Trump just needed in the beginning of this to just chill, right? He needed to be somebody who specifically just talked about policy. He needed to hammer her on the fact that she has no specific policy, right? And he needed to stay away from just pejorative attacks. He can attack her on her record, which when he has done, he's been effective. But he needs to stay away from the crash out. That's all he has to do. Kamala Harris needs to make it about, like, these are the expectations pre-going into this. Kamala Harris needs to make this about herself. It's a giant showcase for her. That's why this debate is such a big fucking deal. It is this giant thing where she can defend her policies against somebody directly attacking them, right? And so her defending her policies is important. On abortion, she did amazing, right? On a couple of the questions, she did amazing. On a couple questions, Trump really did hit her because she went back to talking points. Ironically, even though that Israel question had the same talking points Harris has done over and over again, she somehow squeaked it out because, again, Trump crashed the fuck out. Him bringing up Ukraine makes me feel back to that time where Biden brought up the border when abortion was brought up. It's a very similar fumble. Like, why the fuck did you bring up probably your weakest subject, bro? Like, and her bringing up, like, being very staunch on being, like, offended in the way that she's acting about these autocrats, when she's addressing him and addressing an answer on counterpunching, she's incredibly effective. Incredibly effective. When she's stating a talking point, not as effective, right? And I think that she's got to be more succinct on defining who she is in order to make that work. That being said, Trump has been all the fuck over the place. There are a couple times where he's had, like, a lane he can jump into because, again, the fact that she is nervous and the fact that she hasn't had a lot of time in the candidate position is showing. But he keeps on crashing into the barriers of what he needs to do and just reinforcing everything that's bad about him. That's not great. And if she gets him to look crazier, like just uniquely like, God, I'm just so exhausted by this guy, she wins the debate. That being said, I also think she could win pretty effectively if people are like, okay, this is just a reasonable person, like a reasonable candidate with specific issues. And she gets there by giving specific issues. Her abortion answer was phenomenal. Like the way she talked about it, she felt like she understood the issue implicitly. Even on that foreign policy stuff, she felt like she understood the issue of Putin and all these people implicitly, right? But when it comes to specifics about the border, she's only mentioned the border bill once, right? I don't like that border bill. But to a swing voter, that's important. Okay? All right? If she keeps dodging questions like that, though, that's fodder to make. The one thing that can happen in this debate is they can just make this a zero-sum game. Like, oh, nobody won because she didn't define herself. That's a very easy thing for the media to do. And the media will 100% fucking do it. She has to. She has to have some more defining moments in this debate about who she is, what she wants, and where she goes from there in specifics. He's going to constantly say she doesn't have specifics. She just has to let her work shine for herself. Again, we're at 7:07. We got about half an hour left. Or maybe a little less. I don't know. But we got some time on us, right? I think she's just got to answer a couple questions a little bit more specifically, and she's there. Okay? But yeah, that's how I feel it's going so far. I think Harris is winning, but I don't know. But in terms of like the lasting impact, I think that's still up in the air for the end of this. She's got to do a better job at like just like printing this
presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins,
884 viewers. Thank you guys. This is the most viewers I've had on this channel.
You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly, people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said,
that's a bad answer.
Either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150.
Fake
they should
numbers.
Be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin. Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Thank you, everybody who's given a super chat. I'm going to jump in later.
When I'm president
Eclipse 501, thank you so much.
I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together.
Thank you, Mr. Paul.
That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't because
it's a dog water
Biden had
answer,
no
dude.
idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III.
This is his
Don't kid
Gaza,
yourself, David.
by the way.
We're playing with World
this is
War
his,
III, and we have a
his
president
fumble.
that we don't even know if
like
where
the way
is
he's
our
answering
president?
it is like
We don't even
what
know
people
if he's a
criticize
president.
Harris on for Gaza.
Threw him out
He's
of a
answering Ukraine
campaign
like
a
that.
dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it
done.
done.
Oh, no,
Negotiate
that's a
deal.
fumble.
Because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to
Just
get
say
your
yes
thoughts on support for Ukraine
It's a W. Just
in
say
this
yes.
moment, but also As commander-in-chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here.
There it is.
I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support,
This is a good answer.
Because of the air defense,
This what
the
I mean.
ammunition, the
This
artillery,
what I mean.
the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence.
She should have hit back on
Otherwise,
the DOJ
Putin would be
investigation,
sitting
too.
in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually,
Everybody thinks about
maybe
that.
he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war.
No,
because
that's not-
everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America
did you meet
always
Putin?
should. As a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength,
But did you meet
understanding
Putin?
that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because
is a great
you
diss,
adore
but did you
strongmen instead of
just
caring
answer
about
yes or no?
democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
If she's getting to the
You talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the
This is a libertarian talking point, by the way. That's like a big thing. Like, why the fuck are we in NATO?
Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war.
It's a bad answer.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal.
The moderators are okay, but it's hard to moderate this kind of thing.
He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back
she's gotta
the point
express
of how
solidarity
he has consistently
to
disparaged
the
and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President
Trump,
your response
but
to
she's
her
got
saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved.
God damn it, dude.
And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because
you
they
feel bad
didn't
about the
do
soldiers.
what they
If you
were
say
supposed
that,
to do.
it's a W.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most
withdrawal was bad.
embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her.
Bro,
That's
who the
her.
fuck taught
Harris,
you?
your thoughts on this?
How to do, what is this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who
America
is
is rainbows and gumdrop smiles. She's doing good, though.
Point their fingers at each other.
She's doing good.
I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
Of this debate.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things
so
like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted.
What?
They said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt the person, killed the person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had. A horrible
Trump has points on economy. A lot of people just feel that Trump's economy was better, right? Which is untrue. But
I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development.
There it is. There it is.
That is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
Say
That's
it. Specifics.
The kind of conversation I believe, David, that people really want tonight. As opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the
again, but you also talk shit though, Kamala. Let's be real. Let's be real. You also talk shit, but it's okay. It's okay. That was it. That was it. We were waiting for that.
To defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump.
Crash out, dog. You crashed out.
In Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I just need to respond.
President Trump.
No, the former president has said something twice that I need to respond to.
I'm sorry. We're going to move on, Vice President Harris. President Trump, this is now your third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up.
No, they're still muting the mics, but they're trying to be.
I had a choice to make when I was president.
Trying to
be
conversationalist.
As good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it.
Obamacare's
not
horrible.
Right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something.
That was a fumble.
If we come up with something
that was an insane fumble. What the fuck?
Options we have to do that, and you'll be hearing about it.
You can't make your whole diss that she doesn't have a plan. Say, I don't have a plan right now because I'm not president.
You supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no
That comeback that she had early on, yeah, great comeback.
What the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability.
We reached 900 concurrent viewers, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching with me.
I don't have to tell the people watching tonight. You remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes. And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice President Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
She made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation.
I'm very happy this is a 90-minute debate, not an hour one.
Thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean
Everybody's
water.
getting to interject.
Vice
Baz,
President
I don't think
Harris,
that's
you call
unfair.
climate
If
change
we're being
an
fair, he
existential
does.
threat.
I mean, like,
The
he has got
question
to
to
swing
you
back.
both
And she's
tonight
done the
is,
same.
what
She's
would you
interjected
do
as well.
to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go.
Now she's cooking.
We know that we can
Now
actually
she's cooking.
deal
Now
with
she's
this
there.
issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place.
I mean, the UAW kind of got her back, bro.
Manufacturing in this
Union
country
jobs kind of got her
is
back.
horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son,
Can I interject real quick, guys?
They get all this money from Ukraine.
I just want you to watch this. Compare this to the beginning of the debate. Harris, I think, was really fucking nervous. Trump weirdly kind of half accepted her handshake. She kind of stumbled out of the gate. She was using talking points, which she has been still, but she wasn't hitting and responding directly to him and engaging with him. In the last, like, 10 minutes, or actually 20 minutes.
Statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Sorry for cutting off his answer. It was rambling, though. Listen, I think if we're talking about
the ABC ABC News presidential debate.
Yeah, ABC News president. I get it. ABC News. I think if we're talking about seriously, like how this is going for each candidate, right? Like, again, oh my God, my fucking camera is too high. So you're gonna get to hear me with a black screen. All right, okay. Here's where we're at. I think Harris, one thing that she, from the beginning of the debate, she was clearly pretty nervous. All right, okay, like she's on a national stage. It's very clear she's been preparing for the last couple weeks. That's why her rallies have been a little bit shorter. That's why she's had like big moments, but she hasn't had a bunch of speeches like every single like those 5 blitzkrieg days that she had when she came out the gate. All right. So that's why, yes, Baywatch. You can watch Baywatch while I talk about politics. Something that you should know. Oh, 1,000 people in here. Very quick. I'll address that in a second. But something you should know, that the fact that like right now she had that one answer where he kept hammering her on economy and she just shut him up and she's like, hey, here are my 3 big economic proposals. I'm saying this right now in this standout moment. That is exactly almost scripted what she needed. That's 100% what she needed. And that is something that I'm just like in the back of my mind going, just fucking do that. Divert to that, right? Really smart. She's engaging with the questions a little bit before she pivots a little bit more. So that's the thing. Both these guys have been going off script. You have to acknowledge the question even slightly before you pivot, right? And she started to do that a little bit. She's getting into her own, right? Trump has continued to crash out, right? Again, he is the most effective when he is hammering her on Afghanistan, on her lack of a plan. But that plan thing went away when she addressed it. The fact that she's going into more specifics undercuts that entire attack pattern of his. And she has to keep doing it. Again, these were a series of questions that were pretty bad for Trump. The climate change thing specifically was horrible answer on his part, right? You know, and she did a great job at addressing it. She did a great job at like defending oil early on and then going into this, right? Oh, thank you so much, Carl Farless, for the love on my take, right? So yeah, will we get a Zed Talks to summarize the debate? Maybe I'll cut this up or I'll free Zed Talks to do that. I want to also do a Zed Talks about the polling, but just in general, right? Where we are right now in this debate, right? Both of these candidates had one specific job, right? Like that people expected them to do and things they had to avoid. Early on they both fumbled. Like, I'm just going to be very honest. Like, Kamala Harris did not define herself early on in this debate. That abortion question, phenomenal, but she dropped it afterwards. However, after the first commercial break, I don't know if they went and talked to their coaches, but very clearly, Harris pivoted and kept on point with being more specific, better at answering questions. The Putin question, I think, was a little bit, but she eventually got there. Well, she didn't get there, but she was effective on the Ukraine thing. Trump, honestly, after the first break, I could see him trying to be a little bit more spot on. But within the first answer, he diverted. I'm pretty sure what's happening is Trump is in the middle of his answer. He thinks, you know what? Let me just add this on, and it'll work. And that always kind of crashes out a little bit. And that's not a good strategy. Last thing that I do want to say to everybody, we just hit 1,000 concurrent viewers, which I've never hit on this channel, right? I've never been able to hit 1,000 concurrent viewers. I want to thank everybody here for watching with me. It means a lot. I do this. It's my full-time job. I haven't streamed a bunch because, you know, I want to make sure that, like, I'm giving you guys good content, and I've always been kind of nervous about doing this kind of stuff because I always feel like people see the stream and they get mad. I don't know why some people just leave, but this has been wonderful to stream it with you guys, and I thank you for being a part of this with me. You know, it means a ton. Very quickly, let me reset my camera so it's not like busted. Yeah, there we go. Reset. Okay. Yeah, guys, appreciate you guys. 1,007. We're back up at a K. Right? Means a lot that you guys are here, and I hope you're getting through this election. Again, my name's Zed. I wrap the news every week. If you haven't been here before, you know, we're doing good. Oh, thank you so much, John Horrigan. Thanks for turning off ads. Yeah, man, no ads. Let's just hang. Let's talk about this shit. All right?
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future and the other that is focused on the past and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes,
Thank you,
the
Luciano,
ambition
for the $5.
of the
That means a
American
ton.
people, which is why I intend
Means a
to
ton.
create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world.
That's
I will
gonna
be
piss
a
people
president
off.
that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including
That's
the right
gonna
of a
piss
woman
people
to
off.
make decisions about her own body and not have
It's
her
an army
government
line,
tell
but
her what
that's
to
gonna
do.
be a headline.
I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness,
Thanks,
are you
Mansour.
a Republican or a Democrat? The only
I
thing I
remember you.
ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans.
Appreciate you,
And
Mansour.
focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American
Thank you,
people.
Kate Thomas. Thank you
Vice
for giving us a
President
place to write
Harris,
I
thank
appreciate you.
President Trump.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany
Okay.
tried that, and within 1 year they were
Thanks,
back
Casey.
to building
Thank you for making it
normal
tolerable. Thank you for
energy
hanging out.
plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader.
Again, the
We don't
first
have
half of
any
his attack
idea what's
strong.
going
That
on.
second half,
We
he
have
crashed
wars
out.
going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News. Good night.
The most awkward pullback.
And we are here live on ABC with our post-debate comments.
I want to cut to
It
the
was a
CNN
lively
post-debate
debate from
comments
the
because
economy to
watching Van Jones then just suddenly cry after like a minute is a hilarious. For more analysis, watch CNN. If you're not even gonna fucking give it to us, CNN. Fuck you, fucking CNN, useless ass. All right, let's talk. Let's talk. Let's talk about what we saw, and let's talk about where we're at. Because I have no idea. I have a little bit of an idea. Let's talk. Hi. Hi, I'm sorry, my beard all weird, and I got I'm playing One Piece. Don't get mad at me. Okay, so the debate. I said earlier what the stakes were. I think everybody is like, I think everybody's thought of like, will Kamala Harris win the debate? Look at the betting markets. Look at everybody. Everybody thought she was going to win the debate. All right, okay. Hillary Clinton won all 3 debates. She lost the election. Everybody knew she was going to win the debate. Okay, like I was a little nervous if she would crash out. Like that would have been a ridiculous story. She didn't. She did really, really well. And in the middle of it, that was what we wanted to see. We wanted to see Kamala be Kamala and a badass, and that's what we want. We wanted to see that thing. If you can tell, by the way, actually, if you look at the concurrent viewers here, oh, thank you so much, Amanda Thomas, for the $20 super chat. Thank you guys so much for these super chats. That means so much. I turned off ads on this, so all of that is. I appreciate it so much, guys. I can't explain to you how much I appreciate it, and it means the world to me. So thank you. Thank you, Amanda. So, okay. If we're talking about, like, what the stakes of this debate are, obviously it's defining Kamala. And by the way, if you looked at my concurrent viewers, it was going up to 1,000, 992,000. A big chunk bowed as soon as Trump started talking. So that should tell you, and then I think some of them are back, like, that should tell you that a large amount of this debate has to do with figuring out who Kamala Harris was and who she is under pressure, right? That's what debates are. They're, hey, this is a president. How can he handle pressure, or he or she handle pressure, right? That was a big thing with, like, I mean, look, if you look to the first Obama debate where he kind of meanders, he looks tired. He looks like he can't handle this pressure that Romney's bringing at him, and he lost that. And the next 2 debates, he was fucking at Romney, right? So look, that's a big thing, right? Trump crashing out at the first Joe Biden debate, that looked bad, all right? Here's where we're at with this. Harris needed to look like she defined herself, and then on top of that, she had to win the debate by a mile to seal it, right? If this is the seal of the election, she had to win that by a fucking mile, right? I don't think she won it by a mile, but I do think she had that distance midway through. Midway through the debate, she was kicking his ass, right? Early on, not that much. I think she was, if we're measuring them, I think she was doing okay, but she had stumbles. That abortion question, again, really strong. That first question about the economy, not specific enough. She was specific, but it was clearly a very pablum answer. Everybody right now is trying to look for any constructed answer of Harris to tear her apart. She's got to fight that. So she has that first half where clearly she's nervous. She tries to shake Trump's hand. Clearly she's a little bit off her game. This is a bigger stage than she's ever been on, right? Trump has multiple opportunities to hit her. He consistently crashes out. He will start off with an answer that is very damaging and then fuck up by goading into the baits. He took every single piece of bait she laid out, right? To the point where even when we were talking about rally size, I thought that was probably a bad point, because why the fuck are we talking about rallies? Everybody's here for substantive questioning, but doesn't matter. Viewership was up throughout the entirety of the debate. Midway through, after the first commercial break, Harris found her fucking groove. She found her groove. The number one thing she needed to do was be specific and not let him run over her with an attack. Also, whenever she pivoted from a question, she had to at least acknowledge that the question was asked and that what she has something to do with it, right? She started doing that, right? Which is a little late, but she started doing it. The other thing she started doing is as soon as he attacked her on the economy and defund the police, she interrupted the monitor. She said, hey, no, I gotta answer this. I gotta answer this. Let's talk about my plan. These are the 3 plans I have for the economy, right? Okay? Here's the housing plan. Here's the child tax credit. Here's the tax. Like, she was very specific on what those plans were. Immediately after, you notice how Trump got really fucking mad and just started rambling? That should tell you right there that was the most effective line of strategy. That was the most effective line that she had. Right? Like, right there to shut down that lane that he has. His whole lane was she doesn't have a plan, she doesn't have a strategy, and then he went to, how's she going to do? What? That was effective, right? Then we went to Russia, Ukraine, and the foreign policy questions. Again, the line with Israel and Gaza, I'll be real. She structured it a little bit better, gave a little bit more time to the Palestinian side of the things, but it's still the same thing that a lot of Palestinians have heard for months. That's not going to win over any new converts, right? Honestly, it's not. However, Trump immediately pivoted to Ukraine, which is an enormous weak point for him. Again, I'm talking about the political calculus here. That was such a bad fucking crash out on Ukraine. That was such a damaging thing. I think it reminds me again of Biden in the first debate where he's asked about abortion, one of the strongest issues for Democrats, and he diverts it to immigration, which is something that they've been getting hammered on by the Trump team. The border is a really strong thing for Trump when it comes to all that. Immediately, he fucked that up. And then they asked a direct question about Ukraine, and he fucked that up too. The way Harris was able to pin on him, the fact that he's good, she was able to solidify that line between him and dictators and between him and being a strong man in a way that he wasn't effectively able to defend against. And also, I will say that Harris did not answer a pretty direct question about Putin, like, have you met Vladimir Putin? That's a small thing, but again, that's what I'm talking about. Every time that she doesn't answer a question directly, it looks bad to swing voters. Democratic voters are mostly on her side. Conservative voters are mostly on Trump's side. We're looking at the middle right here, this big swath that we're trying to win over. Okay? People who are unsure about Harris, that's what's winning or losing her in the polls. The last half of that debate, very strong on her record. She did an amazing job. I think, like, consistently, Trump was obviously flustered. He was constantly rambling, right? And she wasn't letting him ramble the whole time. The fact that she would directly look at him, point at him, and be very aggressive undercuts his whole attack of her being weak. And I think that's a very strong thing that she needs to do. Oh my God, you guys are showering me with super chats. Give me 1 second. I will go through all of them. I'm very, very appreciative. Thank you so much. Very, very effectively hitting this guy, right? Every time he crashed out. Biden would just be like, that's crazy. That's fucking crazy. You know? She didn't look like that. Also, her being tied to Biden, very smart of her to try to distance it. I thought that answer that she gave when she said, I'm not Joe Biden, I'm not Donald Trump, I believe in optimism and all that kind of stuff, that's great. Flowery. Very flowery during that portion, right? What else? There's a couple other points that I had. But overall in general, I think she did a good job of distancing herself. She finally addressed a lot of those points. She did an amazing job midway through, right? If this is a Street Fighter match or a fighting match, round one is a close pixel lead life win for her, right? Just because Trump crashed out. He could have won. He's a Ken doing random Shoryukens in the middle of the fucking screen, and Harris is just getting hit. Fucking, okay, block. Just block. Or parry. Do one of those two, right? Second round, she's anti-airing. She's keeping her distance. She's engaging when she needs to. She'll punish when she's punishing him every time he fucks up. Every time he's randomly crashing out. And she'll take a hit or two. She's not playing a perfect game, but she's doing a good job. She did an amazing job that second round, and that third round, she closed it out really strong, right? That final statement that she had, again, the most lethal fighting force line, I think she should have dropped that. Because at this point, it should be well aware to her that people do not understand the reference she is making, and it just comes off very hawkish and militaristic. I get she's trying to be the strong man, like stronger than Trump. I'm not weak. The military trusts me. They don't trust you. I'm not weak. It doesn't come off that way. It doesn't come off. That reminds people of that apprehension, like, whoa, why is she so hawkish there? Okay? All right? Maybe that plays better to swing voters. I don't know. But I do think that was probably a bad idea in terms of trying to keep up that freewheeling momentum that she needs for the next couple of weeks. Trump's answer, honestly, the first part of it, not half bad. And then the last 2/3 of it, dog shit. Again, dude, like, and this is something that you should know about Donald Trump, that maximalism on real estate jargon fucks him, right? If you're constantly like, I built the greatest economy ever, you've never seen it, blah, blah, blah. At this point, people know he did the insurrection. They know he did all of these things, right? Whenever he would speak in a slightly measured, like, specific tone, kind of like how Harris needed to, he was doing, like, not horribly, but not terrible. He was doing decent, right? Political calculus alone. Even if he's lying, he's doing decent. But every time he tried to maximalize, everybody knows immediately he's lying. It is the biggest fucking tell you can easily see. The second he maximalizes, like, I had the greatest economy in the world. All the people love me. They hate her. Everybody wants the overturning of Roe v. Wade. That is such a fucking, like, bomb out that I don't know how you can bomb out harder, right? Like, that's the tell. Like, it's whenever Kamala Harris is like, I am optimistic and joyous. And, you know, one time I saw a puppy on the street and I lifted it up in the air and it grew angel wings. And it was like, listen, I believe in America. And I was like, I believe in America too, puppy. Whenever she's doing that shit, that looks like, okay, he's a politician, right? Trump looks like a fucking liar every time he says he is the greatest of something. He was the best at something. I did this. I did that. Look, compare that to how Harris is talking about herself. I was a prosecutor. I did this. I did. I had these actions of all of hers are direct actions, not the best or worst. I prosecuted transnational gangs. I met with these leaders around the world. I helped talk to Ukraine about this. I did this. I did that. Trump is like, I sent them a picture of their house, and they were like, "Why is this a picture of my house?" And I was like, "You don't want to find out." That's such a fucking over-the-top Rambo fuck story. Like, bro, like, nobody believes that. All right? Again, this is not a GOP primary. This is a general election, right? Okay, you kind of get where I'm going with this, right? Harris, slow start, great, phenomenal finish. Trump, decent at the start, crash out throughout the whole thing, which is what we've fucking known from him, right? Okay? And kind of like an underwhelming performance. Harris clearly won. Now, as to how this affects the race and how this will affect everything, here's the thing. It's not going to end the race. Clearly, it's not over for Trump. He's not going to have a Joe Biden moment where he flounders, right? Honestly, the way this will affect the race is kind of dependent on media reception, okay? Media reception, leftist reception, right? And, I mean, conservative reception doesn't really matter. Right? Swing voter perception is kind of going to be determined by the vibes of the whole room. Okay? So, first off, if the entirety of the media goes, that was a fucking crash out from Donald, like Kamala Harris killed it, right? She's going to probably pick up a little bit more momentum. Okay? She can ride that momentum, capitalize on it, and campaign off of it for the next few weeks and maybe solidify some of those leads that she really needs. Okay? That will be helpful when it comes to swing voters because when she goes to states, she's super well known. There's a lot of buzz about her. She'll get bigger attendance. She can capitalize and use that, right? It's not about convincing anybody. It's about what momentum they're going to get that they can use. If people think that it's okay, like she did okay, she had troubles, and they focus on those troubles early on, and they focus on a lot of non-specifics, it's probably going to be a wash. It's not going to be a hit. It'll probably be a wash, right? If they're like, it was good. She did good, but not great, right? Trump still loses. If it's, oh man, they both did bad, that may be bad for Kamala, right? I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think that she did. She had some really strong moments in the middle, right? But you never know. Media types want to do what media types want to do, right? It may be a mix of things. But overall, I do think in terms of, like, it's a debate, right? In terms of the debate, she looked favorable where she needed to look favorable, right? She was exciting where she needed to be exciting. She was a politician where she didn't need to play a politician, which wasn't great. But it leads to some strong possibilities, right? This whole debate is just about what you can use going into the last couple of weeks, right? And again, you have the Walls debate coming up too with Vance, which I don't think is going to be very good for Vance. So, look, I think it just depends. It just depends on what she gets. Should they just beat a dungeon? What loot did they get? Donald Trump did not get a lot of loot from this. He's not going to have a lot of freewheeling momentum, right? He hasn't done anything in this debate that's going to convince swing voters. This is just about whether or not they like Kamala. Let's be very honest. Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. If you're a swing voter, you already hate him. Right? Like, swing voters don't like him. They don't like Kamala or Biden either. They're just trying to decide if Kamala's like, yeah, she's all right. If she can do that, she's got it, right? That's the main thing. So that's kind of my takeaway from this whole thing. Oh my God, I gotta go up and look at all these super chats and see who's giving me stuff. Oh my goodness, guys. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry, man. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashley, for the $50. Thanks for the coverage, man. I love your opinions on the election. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Amanda Thomas, for the $20. I think I already thanked you, Amanda. Okay, let's go down. Rye, dang, man, you made this bearable. Thanks to keep doing you. Thank you so much, Rye. Ronald Brady, thank you for all you do in making the current events not depressing. Oh my God, thank you, Ronald. Like the current events are depressing for me too, man. It's really, really tough. Also, thank you everybody who's brand new to this channel. Hi, I wrap the news every week. I talk a lot of shit, and we try not to be too exhausting. Like, we're trying to break away from all this culture war bullshit. So stick around. We'll have a good time, and we'll talk about video games. I also do music for video games. Kento, I don't always get to watch your content, but I love your debriefings of your music or other content. Please keep the amazing work. Thank you so much, Kento. That means a ton, man. Knox401, I appreciate the commentary, man. I can't wait for your next freestyle, man. I can't wait to give you my next freestyle. I'm tired, but I'm going to love doing it. Let's see. Is that ready? Tempering Tantrum, thank you for the $10. You didn't put a message there, but I appreciate you greatly. Let's see. Thanks for turning off ads. Yeah, I already saw that, and I appreciate that, John. Yeah, that's the debate. I hope you guys liked it. It's a debate. Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel like this was worth watching. I feel like we learned a lot. I feel like a large amount of what we got from all of this was, I don't know. I feel good about it. I feel like it went well. Maybe I'll feel different tomorrow. I kind of want to see what the reactions from the crowd are and everything like that. I will say, for the next 2 months, this election is going to be an election. It's going to be tough. It's going to be scary. It's going to be exhausting. It'll be inspiring sometimes. Sometimes it won't be. It'll be disappointing with answers people give. I think the main thing you have to understand is the way you want to approach it, right? I think engaging with the political process is really, really, really important. And that doesn't mean necessarily, like, look, I want people, like, I vote, I'm voting, but, like, I know I'm not going to shame people right now, right? Although I do think you should vote. I think it's important, but I'm not going to be I'm not going to fucking dog on you, right? But don't vote for Jill Stein, because she also supports genocide and she's a piece of shit. I'll rip that up. Here's what I will say. I think if you want to engage in the political process in general, that just means, like, hey, I want to move people so that they are more supportive of Gaza, or I want to move people so that they're less supportive of fracking, or I want to move people so that the candidates have to change their position on this or that. I would say you should look at where the opinion polls are for swing voters and act accordingly. That means change your messaging to try to affect those things. For example, for Gaza, if you notice on my show, I do call it a genocide and everything like that, but I also very specifically talk about things that are important. I try to be nuanced so that when I give an opinion, it makes sense and it feels like it's thought through, because it is thought through. I'm not trying to be partisan, but, like, I've been a Muslim for a long time, and I've been, Palestinian people have been a part of my life for a while. So, like, when I talk about what's going on over there, I'm very nuanced, and I try not to give misinformation. I try not to do anything that's a lie. Like, it's very hard to find concrete information sometimes because everybody's yelling. But even more so, abortion, right? If you want to try to make, like, abortion is a pretty popular issue, but, like, fracking or anything like that. If you want to try to talk about that, or you want to try to talk about climate change, figuring out your messaging to make it top of mind for swing voters is really, really important, because that is what moves candidates and that's what makes elections work well, right? So if you're tired of hearing people, if you want to do something, tired of hearing people telling you, oh, vote all the time, and you're trying to find other ways to engage in the political process, that's important. That's important. That's a great way to build communities around that, build communities around action. Not necessarily just, like, hey, fuck this, right? Fuck this is great. It's great. It brings attention to the issue, and then afterwards, it's like, what do we do to fix it? You have the choice. We have enough time to do that. News moves fast, and so we're all primed in a place to be able to do that. So I hope that you take your opinions and your ability, and make that a reality. 2 more super chats. Check your voter registration. Yes, please check your voter registration. It's important if you want to vote. Jennifer Smith, I'm so glad that you are out of Philly. Today was just annoying, from fights to gunshots and shutting down public transportation. But thanks for the stream. It really helps to be digestible. Holy fuck, Jennifer. I'm sorry that's going on in Philly. I'm in LA, and there's traffic, which is shit, but I'm not dealing with that. So I appreciate. Oh man, I'm sorry you're going through that, Jen. My cats are fucking yelling at me. They want me to feed them. It's an hour before they're supposed to eat. But Taylor Swift just decided on her vote. Oh, did she? That's great. Well, I think Taylor Swift. I understand why she wasn't endorsing anybody ahead of time, because. Also, by the way, when you are looking for a celebrity to endorse something, be very careful, because if celebrities' brands are established, whenever they support something, the people who hate their brand are immediately angry at them. I'm just letting you know. That happens all the time. So everybody who thinks Taylor Swift is a pop star and a shitty white girl, they all have an axe to grind with whoever she supports. It's just a thing that happens a lot, right? But people who love Taylor Swift will be on, and you have to weigh that calculus a lot of the time. The Rock was that's how The Rock kind of did his thing too. So yeah, I mean, good. Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala. Well, there you go. There you go. Obviously, the election's over now, right? No, I'm just kidding. It's not over. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. I'm going to see if I can have an update to this, or maybe I can cut this up for people. I'm going to leave this up. There are no ads. Oh, my God. Thank you guys so much for all of the love on this. There are no ads on this stream, right? If you like this stream, go ahead and let me know. And if you are like this channel, go ahead and subscribe. We do stuff here every Sunday and every Wednesday. I have another collab coming up in the next couple of days. I delayed it because I didn't want it to get in the way of this. So yeah, appreciate you guys. Love all you. My name is Zed Tabani. Go see the last Zed Talks. I posted it today. It's a lot about swing voters, and it'll help you give you a little bit more background about this debate and what the stakes were, and it may change your opinion. Also, check the headlines, see what people are saying, because that'll inform a lot of what's going on and moving forward. Appreciate you guys. Have a wonderful night. Go eat some ice cream and decompress. Cause or vegan, I don't know. Go get some, I don't know. Play Astrobot, because it's great. Appreciate y'all. All right, talk soon. I gotta wait 20 seconds before I end it, because it's gonna be. I don't have an end screen, so I just gotta wait till this.